individuals dealing with crisis go to find compassionate and supportive counseling in Suffolk County. And Dr. Darcie D. Sims shares her expertise on the topic of grief in children.
Well, some of the issues that are particularly important for children in grief is first to recognize that children do grieve. Regardless of their age, they do have emotions, they do have behaviors that are talking to us.
And we revisit the segment on the Alternatives for Youth program. Hello, I'm Art Flesher from Suffolk County Health Department's Division of Community Mental Hygiene. I'm your host for Something of Substance, our monthly video magazine. Welcome back. Each month we show how substance abuse, mental illness, and developmental delays affect you, your kids, and your community. We'll also give you a few examples of how services in Suffolk County help people find the inner resources they need to tackle their problems.
Where's Mom? Did she forget me? I wonder what happened to her. What if I get left here?
Drugs and alcohol may make you forget your problems for a moment, but that's not all you forget.
My mother worked hard to be in recovery, and I love her for that.
Response is a crisis intervention and referral hotline available all year round, 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. Response provides callers in Suffolk County with professionally trained and compassionate counselors that can provide help and support to persons dealing with crisis.
Response since 1971 has been a crisis center in Suffolk County and beyond. Our core service is our hotline, which is available 24/7, 365 days a year. It's free.
When you receive a call, it could be range from anything from financial problems to people who are lonely to people who are thinking of committing suicide or know somebody that's thinking of committing suicide.
Our core mission is to provide people going through any type of life crisis with that free, accessible, caring human response anytime they might need it. And that would include any kind of crisis up to a suicidal crisis.
It is so very, very important that all of us are aware of the warning signs that people do exhibit when they're going through any depression or even thinking of suicide.
Warning signs for depression and suicide fall into two major categories. There are warning signs that you see, that you will hear. Somebody will say something. It could either be a very direct thing that you will hear. In other words, somebody will say to you, "I don't want to live anymore." That's a very direct verbal warning sign. Or it could be more indirect. Somebody might say to you, "I just can't take it anymore. Life is just too much." Or it could be behavioral. Warning signs could be behaviors that you observe.
Behaviors such as isolation, reckless behavior, moodiness, constant crying, unable to function. Depression does affect people not only physically, emotionally, psychologically. It really affects every area of our life, our ability to function in school, at work.
And behavioral warning signs can be direct or indirect as well. A very direct behavioral warning sign would be me saying to you, "Please take this prized possession of mine. I don't need it anymore. I won't have any use for it anymore." That could be a very direct warning sign, or hoarding pills, or researching things on the internet. So warning signs fall into those categories, but understand too that suicide is a very complicated behavior. So you take the warning signs along with risk factors, what we would call risk factors, things that we know about this individual in terms of their family history, or if they use drugs or alcohol, or if there's a mental illness. So you take the risk factors along with the warning signs, and they come together in just the wrong way, at just the wrong time, and we would call that the perfect storm.
Right. So the purpose is really not to fix anything or anybody, and you couldn't do that on the phone, not knowing them and not understanding the history. So the purpose really becomes to help lower their anxiety level and help them through the crisis.
The main goal of crisis counseling would be to lower anxiety so that people can get to a place where they can think through their own best next steps. And that is the main goal of crisis counseling. In addition to the hotline, we have an online crisis counseling program. We have a bilingual hotline. We are back up to probation for runaway and homeless youth. And we have a very active community education program.
Well, primarily my responsibility is to educate and train and supervise some of the all of the educators in the community for response to Suffolk County.
And what she does is she coordinates all of our presentations in middle schools and high schools throughout Suffolk County. We get funding through the Youth Bureau with a special focus on adolescent suicide prevention. So we have educators that go out and teach kids about active listening skills, how to help a friend, the warning signs of suicide and depression, and telling kids about how to access our services.
As a training coordinator, what we're looking for in terms of our volunteers, we're looking for people who are willing to listen, who are open to learning a new way of communicating. We use a lot of active listening skills. We're looking for people who are open-minded, who are non-judgmental, and are willing to learn, a new set of skills. The
training that's received here is, in my opinion, is terrific training. They're very, very careful about how you do it. You follow the rules, you do it the proper way, and there's constant training and constant supervision, and so that you know that you're doing it the right way.
We're also looking for people that are willing to make a commitment of at least 6 months. And they only need to be 18 years or older. They don't need to have any specific type of education or background to volunteer with us.
So on a personal level, what I get out of being a crisis counselor is the ability really to help people that are in need on a one-on-one basis. And that gives me just a lot of satisfaction in being able to do that.
So when I started out as a volunteer here, the thing that I remember being the most fulfilling initially was I felt like I was coming home. It was a new place. I was new to the area, and the other volunteers and the staff were so warm and welcoming. It was like this wonderful pocket of the nicest people in the world, and I looked forward to going there every week. And I really enjoyed talking to the callers. We have such a wide variety of callers, but I really felt like I was helping in a very direct way. And it made me feel like I was contributing something, and there was a real satisfaction. There was an immediate gratification in knowing that I was making a connection with someone over the line, and that I was making a difference right away.
Many people wonder how people find response, and there are many different ways. One way is through our community education program. We reach thousands of Suffolk County youth in middle schools and high schools through our community education program. We also do trainings 2 or 3 times a year at a local university. And in promoting those trainings, we reach out to local colleges, libraries, we do public service announcements, we are in the Yellow Pages. And finally, another way people find out about us is through the National Lifeline, which is a toll-free number that you can see sometimes when you're driving on the New Jersey Turnpike. We're part of that network. So there are many different ways people find out about us, but we're always looking to let the community know about us. We don't want to be the best kept secret in Suffolk County. We want people to know about us so that when they're in crisis, they know where to turn.
We would like to thank Response of Suffolk County for their tremendous work as an essential crisis intervention resource. Please check out their website at www.responsehotline.org. For more information about Response, volunteering as a telephone counselor, or if you're in crisis and just need to talk, give them a call at 631-751-7500. Up next, we have an interview with Dr. Darcie D. Sims to discuss her work on the topic of grief in children. We'll be right back.
Are you feeling down or anxious? Perhaps you've suffered a loss recently, or you're involved in a difficult relationship. Maybe you need food, shelter, help with financial problems, or just someone to listen. Whatever your concern, you'll find a caring, accepting person when you call Response. Their volunteers will give you all the time and information you need, night or day. Call 751-7500. It's anonymous and confidential.
Dr. Darcie D. Sims is a bereavement management specialist who works with parents and children. She's a published author, the president and co-founder of Grief Incorporated, as well as the director of the American Grief Academy in Seattle, Washington. Dr. Sims, what got you started in the field of grief management?
I got started doing this kind of work 36 years ago when our son died of a malignant brain tumor, and I was looking for ways to help my surviving 5-year-old and myself as well. My husband was flying missions over Hanoi, so he was not there, which was another complicating factor. But there were no books. There were no support groups. I went to her kindergarten class, and the teacher said, we won't deal with that. We just won't talk about her brother. And that was fine until they had to draw a picture of the family, and of course she included him, and the teacher suggested that perhaps we should not include him in our family anymore. And I knew at that point that I was going to have to do something to change my way of thinking and the world's way of thinking. I was already a therapist, but I went back to school and began to study grief and death. And there wasn't much to study because we simply weren't doing those things at that time. But I also knew that if I listened to children, that they would guide me, that they were talking about it, they just weren't talking about it around adults. So from that beginning, I changed my entire career, and this is what I've been doing for the past 34 years.
Are there certain prevalent issues that are specific to children dealing with grief?
Well, some of the issues that are particularly important for children in grief is first to recognize that children do grieve. Regardless of their age, they do have emotions, they do have behaviors that are talking to us all the time. We sometimes misinterpret them or don't even notice what they're saying or how they're behaving, but they do think and talk about grief and loss. One of the other issues is to really understand that grief is not just about death. There are many faces to grief. Children are coping with divorce. They're coping with moving and relocation. They're coping with economic issues. They hear what's going on in the family. They know when there's not a lot of money, or mom or dad has lost their job, or the house is being repossessed. These are not things that we can keep secret, even if we try to. Children are watching things on television and on videos. So grief is a part of their lives, so we need to be able to address it. We need to be able to address it at the age the child is, not talk to them in adult concepts. So the best guideline is let a child talk to us, and we need to listen to what they're saying.
Dr. Sims, is there a difference in anger pertaining to grief as opposed to everyday stress-related anger?
There are many kinds of anger. The kind that I'd like to talk about for a minute are two different kinds. One is called grief-related anger, and that's the anger that comes after someone has died or we've experienced a loss of some kind. Remember, divorce, death, moving. Sometimes we're just angry. Angry means I'm not in control. I'm mad. I feel I've been abandoned. I'm mad at the person. I'm mad at you. I'm mad at God. I'm mad at my friends because they don't know what to do. That's grief-related anger. Then there's another kind of anger that's called chronic anger. And grief-related anger, if not attended to and given the tools to deal with, can become that chronic anger, where a child of any age, and when I talk children, I talk 0 to 100, because we all hurt from the kid part of us, that chronic anger stays with us, and it becomes a way of life for us. You've seen people who look like they're looking for a fight. Or they have a chip on their shoulder. They're just waiting for any moment. They're angry all the time. That's chronic anger, and we would deal with that differently than grief-related anger. But grief-related anger is related because someone left me, they abandoned me, I'm sad, I hurt, I don't know what to do. So giving them the tools to recognize that, to release that anger, and then to find some ways to connect to the memories are ways to help with that grief-related anger.
At what point should a parent or guardian seek outside help when dealing with children attempting to cope with grief?
There's always a question about when is outside help needed. And outside help is needed whenever you want it. That's the first criteria. If you think you need some outside assistance, please seek it out. It's always better to have extra help than not enough at all. Any behaviors that are leading towards self-destruction, whether it's cutting or banging your head or not eating, not sleeping, those are behaviors that are actually going to do physical harm to you. We want to get some extra support, not just for the child, but for the whole family. Anytime anger becomes more than simply stomping their foot or yelling for a few moments. But the very best time to go see a therapist is when you would like to. And then I want families to shop for their therapist. Most families buy their shoes more carefully than they buy a therapist. I mean, they will try on shoes, they'll walk around the store, they'll look in the mirror and they'll say, oh, these look good, or oh, these don't. I want you to do the same with a therapist, to talk to that therapist. What is their training? Do you feel comfortable with this person? Because you're going to be working with this person and doing some maybe difficult things to do, and you want to have a good relationship with that therapist. So you might have to try one or two on before you find a really good fit. But everybody could use a little bit of support. So if we use the word support instead of use the word help, people say, oh, you need some help. Well, no one's going to say that. They'll say, no, I don't. But we all could use some additional support in our lives.
Dr. Sims, can you speak on the importance of adamantly communicating with your child about grief, even when the child is resistant to communicating?
It is important to talk to our children, even to the point maybe of getting to nagging sometimes, as our teenagers will say, my mother nags at me all the time. And I would say to that child, and what happens when your mother stops? And they look at me and they go, maybe she doesn't care anymore. Talk to your children. They do hear you, even if they don't look like they hear you. If you can't talk to them verbally, text them, write them a message, put a note on their pillow, stick a note in their napkin in their lunchbox, stick a little sticky in their car, put a sticky note in the middle of their steering wheel if you have to. Put something in the bottom of their shoe that just says, I love you. Children do hear us, even if they pretend not to. And more importantly, they hear when we stop talking to them. And that's one of the greatest griefs of all, is when you realize that perhaps someone that you really do care about, you just don't know how to tell them, suddenly maybe doesn't care about you. So never stop talking to your kids.
We'd like to thank Dr. Sims for her informative and compassionate work dealing with grief in children. For more information, please contact Dr. Sims at her website, www.griefinc.com. Up next, we have an archive segment on the Alternatives for Youth program. Stay tuned.
They'll be fine, I hope.
What if you could prevent a young person from getting hurt or killed?
What should I do?
If you could turn back the clock and stop an underage drinking party from ever happening. Now you can. Pick up the phone and call 1-866-UNDER-21. It's your community, your call, and it's completely anonymous.
Suffolk County has an exceptional approach for helping troubled teens and their families stay out of family court. The Department of Probation's Alternatives for Youth, or AFI program, works with the whole family to help them solve their problems.
If a child is jumping out of the window at night, eloping from the house at 2 in the morning, a parent may have found some drug paraphernalia in the child's room, or they're leaving for school and never actually getting there.
The parent must contact the Department of Probation to inform them of the issues that they're having with their teen. They must have 3 allegations, 3 different dates.
We encourage families, if they're having problems with their child, if they feel like things are falling apart in their family and they really need help, we encourage them to call us, because we're here to help them. We're here to help their child, help their adolescent in any way that we possibly can.
During our initial visit, we do not just look for problems that are occurring in the family. We also look at the strengths of the family. What are the parents' strengths? How can we build upon that to empower the parent? What are the child's strengths? What are they good at? What are their interests? What do they like to do? And how we can integrate that into the family plan to improve the crisis that's going on in the home.
they have case managers that go into the family's home and they work with the family to establish goals and to hopefully resolve immediate crisis that may be occurring. They stay in the home between, I think it is 30 to 45 days.
We sit down with the entire family and we develop a plan of what can basically help the child to continue to improve their behavior and to improve the family dynamics in the home. So this could consist of goals such as maybe the child doing better in school. So we'll have a goal which is improve school performance, and some of the objectives may be to stop cutting class, to actually do their homework, to do their class assignments, to listen to the school personnel. We may have other goals such as improve family communication. A part of that goal can be they will attend family therapy to achieve this. They may also spend time together as a family, movie night once a week.
I think anytime you hear the word probation, it already conjures up punitive images in your mind. Because then you're thinking of courts, you're thinking of judges, you're thinking of loss of control. But the AFI program is a completely, entirely voluntary program.
The phase 1 worker may say, okay, we might want to get a psychological evaluation, what's going on with the child, and then we would follow recommendations from that evaluation.
The majority of the kids have oppositional defiant disorder, which, you know, is a pretty common disorder, and that's for kids who are not following rules. Maybe they're staying out late at night, breaking curfew, very argumentative with the parents, skipping school. And then I'd have to say maybe the second primary diagnosis we've seen is depression. And there's also a large number of children and adolescents who are using substances of abuse.
We've had a teen adolescent female who actually had a drug problem. One of our peer specialists would go with her to AA meetings, was very supportive. She also came to our girls group, and she had a serious drug problem. And now she's doing really, really well. She goes on her own now. She has been clean for a year. She actually just graduated high school and went to college. She started college in September, and she's doing really well.
When the parent initially calls probation to initiate the AFI process, there are usually some incorrigible behaviors going on. And when they're in with phase 1 of the program, they're working on that crisis intervention. Hopefully, at the end of that 5 weeks or so, when they come to us, the crisis has kind of dissipated, and now we can help the family to work on linking them to services.
Family Service League, as you know, is the aftercare, one of the aftercare programs.
We also have the Suffolk County Department of Social Services provide aftercare for many of our families.
We do say to the parents, we work for you. What is it that you need? And we understand that they've lost power, that the balance of the scales have been where the child is kind of running the household. And to reinforce that, we always refer back to the parent. If the child is saying, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, we say, but you're here because your parent, your mother, your father, your grandmother, whoever is in that parental role, says you have to be.
I provide medication management as a nurse practitioner, and also we're all trained in family therapy. So that's one of our goals, is to do family therapy if the referral is appropriate for our facilities.
If the evaluation says that there's conduct disorder or there's some anger issues, we may follow up with an anger management referral.
Family Service League has a teen mentoring program. They have Big Brothers, like a peer specialist to work with the youngsters, as well as Big Brothers and Big Sisters will make referrals to them. So we'll try to provide, and there's also different types of groups too, that Family Service League particularly provides.
One of the things that we've implemented here in Family Service League in the aftercare piece is a parenting program that's a 6-week program, and we don't like to call it parenting because we're not teaching them how to parent. What we're doing is helping them with the stress of raising an adolescent. And it's really focused on adolescent development and opening up those lines of communication.
Adolescent boys like to oftentimes feel like they can take care of everything, that they don't need help from any agency. And I think sometimes they're embarrassed to talk to people. And I feel good if I can make this child feel comfortable enough to talk to me. And if I feel that I've helped this family, helped identify the problems that are occurring, identify a mental health issue that a child might be struggling with, and provide proper resources that the family have agreed to accept and agreed to work through, then it makes me feel like I've done a good job.
We've had a lot of families attend our parent support groups. We do an orientation into the program, and when the parents attend that group, they feel supported, and they don't feel alone, and they don't feel like they're the only ones going through this.
Well, it is wonderful that Suffolk County offers so many programs available to help families in need and to help adolescents and kids in need, especially when families are going through crisis and they don't know where to turn. Now we offer so many different services for these families, and I think the AFI program really benefits the whole family.
Campaign for the Mental Health Association of Suffolk. Starting this year, an entire week is being dedicated to that effort, with various events and activities across Suffolk County. The director of the MHA, Colleen Merlot, joins us in the studio to discuss her organization's commitment to this effort. Colleen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me today, Art.
Great. I guess the first thing to talk about is the fact